do with women, so.
Keena, are we ready? Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm going to call the Charlottesville City Council March 5th, 2024 meeting to order. We will, I'm used to having my script in front of us, but we're going to break the meetings into three different sections. The first one is, thank you so much. The first is a discussion for where we will get a report from Mr. Sales, and then we will have a break to go into closed session, and then we'll come back for our general meeting. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Councilor Oshrin? Here. Councilor Payne?
Here.
Vice Mayor Pinkston?
Here.
Councilor Snook?
Here.
Mayor Wade?
Here. Is there a motion to approve or amend the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Can we please vote? The motion passes. And as I mentioned, the meeting is divided into three main sections. And now we will begin with the report from Mr. Sales on the city housing portfolio. So it's your show, sir.
Thank you. And I did send the PowerPoint, but also.
Thank you.
We can pass it down.
Yeah. Thank you. It's wonderful.
David, or let me put it on the screen.
Yeah, Remy, you should have a presentation. Is it a PowerPoint or?
It's PowerPoint.
PowerPoint for John Sales?
Give me one moment. I'm not sure if I got this one.
No, I only sent it to Remy and David Dillon.
Okay, I found it. Stand by.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to give an update on the CRHA City Housing Portfolio that's jointly owned by the City of Charlottesville and CRHA. The portfolio was developed to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing units that were at risk of being lost due to natural real estate transactions. The portfolio is jointly owned by the City of Charlottesville and CRHA. The first property that was acquired on August 30th of 2022. On the screen, it talks about the property acquisition. So the very first one was 1016 and 1020 Coleman Street, which are 4 two-bedroom, 1-bathroom units. And we acquired those in August of 2022. And then in October, CRHA and the city jointly acquired 818 Montrose Avenue, which is 2 two-bedroom, 1-bathroom units. And then on June 30th of 2023, the city and CRHA jointly acquired Dogwood Portfolio, which is 74 scattered units throughout the city. We then acquired 100 Harris Road, which is a 3-bedroom single-family home on July 14th, 2023. And that home was also in jeopardy of being lost. The tenant that lives in that home has been there for over 30 years. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the units in Dogwood. It's 3 different slides, and I just wanted you all to be able to reference the addresses to those units, and so I'll keep going on those. We wanted to talk about who we're serving. So when we acquired a portfolio, we wanted to make sure that we can preserve the units. So there wasn't a AMI, there wasn't a goal to only serve 80% AMI and lower. But when we acquired the property, those are the families that were already being served. We want to continue serving those families. And so what we have been doing for this portfolio is utilizing the voucher programs in the county and in the city, and also assisting families that reach out to us that are unable to get served on the public housing program or the voucher program. And so 68% of the families are between 0 and 30% AMI, 20% are between 31% and 50% AMI, and 11% are between 51 and 80% AMI. And we do have 1 vacant unit.
I'm having a really hard time seeing those numbers. What is the blue?
The blue is 0 to 30% AMI, and it's 68% of the families.
Got it.
So it's a total of 80 units in the portfolio. This is the citizenship status information. This has been really tricky to get. We didn't have this information when we acquired the portfolio, but as we're engaging with the residents, we're getting this information. And so far, we've been able to deduce from that 15% of the families that we're serving are not citizens, do not have citizenship status.
Okay, I looked at this chart, this graph, and saw it exactly the opposite.
Yeah, the no and the yes are either switched or confusing.
Yeah, they're switched, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I will fix that, and we will get that information back over to you guys.
I was wondering how the odds would shake out to have 84% of the people not
Yeah,
being citizens.
that's a flip, I'm sorry. Rental subsidy, so the portfolio already was serving 22 families that had vouchers already. We've continued, as the units become vacant, we've continued to add additional subsidized units to the portfolio, serving families that already have vouchers. So some of them have come from CRHA, some have come from the county, and some have come from Region 10. So now we're at about 30% have vouchers on the unit to assist them with paying their rent. So they're only paying 30% of their income, and the voucher is subsidizing the remainder.
Sorry, you said there were 22 families originally and now there's 30%?
Yeah, so it was 22, and I think we've added 3 additional families as the units have turned over.
That's 30% of the 80.
30% of the 80,
Okay.
correct. Now, this slide is a little troubling. It's the income to rent ratio. We're looking at the families that are rent burden. There are 9 families that are paying 60% of their income towards rent that live in Dogwood portfolio, that live in city housing. All of them were in the Dogwood portfolio. There are another 19 that are paying between 41 and 60% of their income towards rent.
And do you know if they had been part of the Dogwood portfolio for many years? Because that's my understanding that a lot of
A lot of them have been there for many years, and they're barely getting by paying their rent, having a really hard time. Operational changes. So upon acquiring the portfolio, we received a stack of open work orders. A majority of them were pest control and plumbing issues. So we worked with 2 contractors, 2 local pest companies in the area to get quotes for increasing the service. They were being treated quarterly. So we received quotes for treating them monthly. The portfolio could not afford to pay to get the units treated monthly. CRHA is also having the same issue. And so we had hired 2 technicians, licensed technicians, exterminators, to work for CRHA to treat all of our units on the public housing side and in the low-income housing tax credit portfolio. And so we're utilizing those same 2 exterminators to treat the Dogwood portfolio as well monthly. And they also treat in the afternoon based upon request.
So now it's an in-house staff person doing it?
Not as in-house staff, and
Great.
the costs for those 2 exterminators are split between all the properties. The portfolio does have a dedicated property manager and a maintenance technician, and we're looking to add a part-time technician to assist because a lot of the housing stock is really old and it could use some work. Discussion points. So we were approached by a business owner who was interested in acquiring one parcel from the Dogwood portfolio. The parcel is 801 Harris Street. It's a commercial, industrial zone property. It currently has a duplex on it, a two over one. And it's not in the best place for residential. I've been talking to my board about it. The board is in support of disposing of that property. CRHA did purchase a 3-bedroom over 2-bedroom property in Belmont towards the end of last year. We acquired it for $255,000. We're in the process of renovating that property now. We're estimated to have about $350,000 in that property. If the council is in support of disposing the Harris Street property, CRHA will look to move that property to the portfolio, pay back what we purchased the property for and what we have in the property for, and the proceeds, the remaining proceeds go back into the portfolio. We believe the property, we haven't received the market analysis yet, but we believe it's going to land anywhere between $375,000 and $500,000.
So I'm sorry, that's not how, strategically for your portfolio, you think it makes sense to basically take that one house and
Yes.
take the cash out of it essentially and use that to reinvest in another property?
Yes, based upon where the property is located and other restrictions. So the lot is not a great lot. It drops back about 50 feet into the property. So it's a really big topographic change. And there's also, I believe, a well or a stream on the property that would require a lot of work. And so the company, one of the businesses that reached out to us initially, they've done a lot of work around streams, and they were interested in trying to preserve it.
Okay.
The financials don't really look well on the screen, but also provided them in the report as well. So I'll go over them fairly high level. The properties pencil out really well. We've bought the majority of the properties in June, and so between June and January, we're sitting at a net income of $140,000. But that's after these non-reoccurring expenses: $85,000 for a loan origination fee, $30,000 in appraisal fees, and $22,000 in surveying fees for the portfolio. In order to get a loan, these were the fees that we had to get appraisals for the entire portfolio, and we had to get surveys for all the units, the parcels. And so that's $120,000 in non-reoccurring fees that will go back to the portfolio next year, because those are expenses we'll have next year. So we're projecting that this portfolio could, in a whole entire year, net between $400,000 and $500,000.
This non-recurring expense slide, that is just about acquiring the Dogwood portfolio?
Correct. Those are only expenses for the Dogwood portfolio.
Can you remind me, I should know this, but I guess this was 18 months ago we talked about this? Or a year ago. In any event, help me remember. So there's a mortgage payment we're paying on all this, right?
Correct.
And so the net that you see includes the fact that the
Yes.
mortgage payment.
And the mortgage payment is, we do have that calculated. It's the second page of the financials at the very bottom, the interest expense loan. So far, we've paid about $200,000. Is under financing expense.
It's even smaller here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually in your board report as
I
well.
know, I'm just picking.
So upcoming projects, several of the homes, like I stated earlier, several of the homes are really old, need some work. We have 3 on Ridge Street that are historic homes with metal roofs and hidden gutters. So we've been talking, we've gotten 4 quotes so far from roofers, and based upon those quotes, they're coming in around $50,000 per roof. We started submitting grant applications. We've submitted a grant application through the city, through CDBG/home. We've met with city staff to look at what other options are available, such as historic preservation funds, and so we're exploring that as well. But if we don't receive any of those, if we're unawarded any of those funds from those entities, then CRJ will be prepared to use the net operating income to cover the roof replacements at $50,000 per roof.
Could I ask, $50,000 per building?
Per building.
Or per unit in the building?
Per building.
So when you say current estimates are $50,000 per home, that's per
House.
per house?
Per structure,
building,
yes.
Okay.
So it's 3, we're at 150,000.
Was this like an RFP?
No,
sort of
this
thing?
was us reaching out to 4 different vendors and getting quotes from them.
And where are they located?
They're all located in the city of Charlottesville.
They're all located.
Yes. They're all located in the city of
Yeah,
Charlottesville.
no,
I'm
I
sorry.
got it, thanks. Thank you.
And I believe that's all I have for you, unless you all have any questions.
Would you describe the houses on Ridge Street where the roofs need to be replaced?
There is a 9-plex, a 7-plex, and a duplex that are on Ridge Street. The 9-plex is located at 517. The 7-plex is located at 511. And then 407 Ridge Street is the duplex that needs a new roof as well.
So you may have mentioned this, but there's two questions. One, were there any, I know that you reviewed the purchases, the homes before you purchased them. Were there any surprises once you kind of got the?
No, we knew what we were getting into. The opportunities to redevelop and preserve what we have, those units for what they are right now, was far greater than the challenges that we were getting into. We did inspections of all the units. We had appraisals done, surveys done. We went through the appraisals with the fine tooth to figure out which are the big projects that we'll have to undertake soon. I will say we've had some plumbing leaks that were unexpected, but you really can't predict those.
Was it a year ago that we authorized the purchase, or was it?
No,
2 years.
it was almost a year ago. We
Okay.
bought it in June 30th.
June 30th.
So we're coming up on a year.
Yeah,
That's right.
authorized a couple months before that.
We did a lot last year.
Yes.
Can you say the addresses of the Ridge Street houses again?
It's 517, 511, and 407.
And it's a 9-plex, a 7-plex, and a
9-plex,
duplex?
7, and yep.
And John,
Thank you.
my other question is, you had mentioned that I forgot the exact number, but some families are paying more than 60% of their income for their rent. What are we now
we
that
do?
they're in our portfolio? What are we doing with those?
So there's a couple different options. CR can just reduce the rent, but that could potentially play a role in sustainability. Or CRJ also administers a SISRAP program through the city. There's a chance that you could use the SISRAP funds to assist those families that are housed until they move out of that property, and then the assistance would go away. They would only assist the families while they're leased up in the unit.
So I know I talked with one of your workers this weekend. I know that you have a program where you help families, with employment and things, and so I don't know, what the employment status is, but maybe if they aren't working, we can help them get a job, or if they have one, maybe help them get one that pays more. If that's something that we, not that we make them do it, but if they want those services, is that something that you can do?
Yeah, so we have Family Self-Sufficiency Program. We have two resident service coordinators that just work with getting folks what they need. So we partner with Network to Work to provide some wraparound services. And we also partner with PVCC to get them signed up for training programs. We also have a relationship with UVA's, Pipelines, the Pathways Program. And I believe we're exploring a relationship with the Goodwill in Valley as well.
Yeah. Well, I know they call them everyone, because I know they call me. I work for the county, and I think they just call them different career centers. And so I was glad to help them, let them know what we can do to help families. So
Perfect.
so, yeah.
So I just did a quick little search, and it looks like the retreat houses were built in 1925, and they were originally single-family homes, right?
Correct.
And now they've been subdivided into duplexes through nineplexes, but they're still the size of a house.
The size of a mansion. They're huge homes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Mr. Sales, that I appreciate the follow-up. This is, I think, when we talked about this, I guess it was 8 months ago or so, 9 months ago. Well, a year ago, we started having these conversations. I remember Councilor Payne and I coming over to your office, I think, in West Haven, and I think this just shows creativity on your part, and I'm very grateful for the work that you've done. And I'm also, grateful that you've come back to us and given us an update. A lot of times, we make an expenditure or we do something, we may not hear about it. But I appreciate you coming back with these sorts of hard data.
Thank you.
I got nothing else.
Before you end this, would you all express what your interest is in regards to the Harris Street item?
Well, first, so I think we may have discussed this at the CRHA board meeting, but I can't remember. What is the business that's interested in purchasing it? Is it known what their use of the property may be?
So there is a business that's interested in purchasing it. But based upon our regulations, we have to put the property on the open market. Initially, we brought the property to the board because this business came to us about the opportunity, and we looked at the property and then looked at what other options were available for relocating the family if we move forward. We continued with that route, talking with the families, engaging with them. One family was already in the process of moving, but then they found out that we had other housing options, and so now they're staying with us in another one of our units. So the property is going to go to the open market. So I prefer not to say the business name, but they were going to preserve it to expand their business operations, so moving their headquarters to that location. So it wasn't going to be housing. It was, I'm trying not to say their name.
Would they be keeping basically the same building but using it as an office?
No.
Or tearing down the building?
Tearing it down. They will be tearing it down and repairing the stream, because the stream literally runs, I think, 5 feet behind the property, where the property is currently located, the home on the property.
And the scenario would be that you would be basically trading, describe the unit count again, what for what?
So I would be trading a 3/2, which is the three-bedroom unit over top of a 2-bedroom unit for a 2-bedroom over a 2.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I was looking at 100 Harris Road. This is 801.
Yeah, this is 801. 100
Harris
Harris
Street.
Road is a single-family
Gotcha.
3-bedroom home.
Yeah, I was confusing things. Thank you.
Yeah, and 801 Harris does look like it's kind of out there by itself.
It is. It's, I think it's 2 other homes on that street now.
We also just approved we approved an apartment building on Harris. And I said at the time, and I still think it's a valid observation, that Harris ought to be a place where we're encouraging other industrial, commercial kinds of uses. And I think that in the long run, we're going to be glad we will have done so in this case, although we lose a couple of units of housing.
Yeah.
It's sort of the wrong place for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it up. So I think, did we have to make an official vote? or-
You wouldn't take a vote now? I'm just more or less interested, are you wanting an item to come back to you that would promote this particular transaction?
Yeah, so if we can just kind of go to, let us know what your position is, Michael.
Well, certainly happy to have an item come to us, and when it came to the CRHA board, I voted in support of it. The only hesitation I have is just if there's an opportunity at that site to use it, not even for housing, but a commercial use. Is there a way to ensure that it's used for some sort of local business or local purpose as part of that, and that we don't forego any opportunity to use land for that purpose? That's a question that may be answered by, who the interested buyer is, but that's the only concern I have.
Okay.
As a practical matter, would we have a say in it anyway if it's owned by CRHA outright?
Well, it's not,
It's in
so
the
it's jointly
portfolio.
owned. It's
This
jointly
is-
owned by
Oh, it's
CRHA.
part
CRHA.
of,
This is
part of the Dogwood portfolio?
Yes.
I got
That's
you.
why I'm
Okay.
asking about your interest in the
Yeah,
transaction.
okay.
And so the next step would be a resolution coming to us that we would discuss and vote on.
Once the deal were to be worked out to ensure that the terms would be favorable for me to bring it to you, sure.
Well, I'm happy to have an item, again, happy to have an item come with the concern that I just raised.
Natalie?
I mean, if the staff recommendation is to proceed with this, I'm not all that concerned. The only thing that I'm noticing is when I look at this property from the satellite, it is mostly trees in a sea of concrete. And I didn't know if that was a concern at all, that if we give this up and I mean, I know it has to go through the new zoning tree ordinance of it all to change that, but if we kept it stays green. If we lose it, we have no say in that. But I don't feel super strongly either way.
Lloyd?
No, I'm good with it.
I am as well.
I'm supportive of it as well, so Sam, I think you can bring it back. You heard some of the concerns, and but you can bring it back. So.
One last thing, the
Yeah.
rent burden and extremely severely rent burdened families. You and I want to talk about that soon?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is, Mr. Freeze will talk about the strategic investment area and small area plans.
Good evening, Mayor Wade, members of council.
Good
My name
evening.
is, good evening. My name is James Freese. I'm Director of Neighborhood Development Services. I have with me Brenda Kelly from the Office of Community Solutions. And yes, we're here to talk this evening about the Small Area Plan Program, and in particular, 2 lines in the CIP that provide funding to support that program. Just by way of a quick bit of background, these are images drawn from the comprehensive plan. Small area plans are place-based plans for different areas of the city. As you can see, there's a number of them here that we recognize and are adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. The idea of doing small area plans was first identified in the 2013 comprehensive plan, and as you can see, there have been a number of them done since then. Slide, please. And then the comprehensive plan anticipates the notion of doing more of them going forward. These are just generalized areas of the city where there's been interest or the idea floated of doing them. I would note Rose Hill Harris is on there, but I would also include within that the Preston Avenue corridor and 10th and Page, kind of in that general area, as places where we would like to talk about doing small area plans. And I think at this point, I turn it over to Brenda.
Remy, next slide, please. So we are here today to talk to you about some recommendations we have for discussion regarding the budget allocations related to small area plans. But first, some clarifications for some of you that may want some additional information. When we talk about SAP, In this case, we're talking about small area plans, so that's one of the abbreviations we wanted to clarify. And also, when we talk SIA, if we happen to do that, we're talking about the strategic investment area, which you saw on a previous slide, that was the first of the small area plans that was approved. So specifically, we're going to be talking about the two line items in your CIP budget that have the arrows next to them below, the SIA implementation line item and the small area plans line item. So as you saw in a previous slide, the SIA plan was adopted in 2013, and a couple of years after that, the city council that was in place at the time allocated funding in the CIP for implementation of the SIA area, small area plan. That is what's identified in the SIA implementation line item in your CIP budget. Since that time, other small area plans have been adopted, but no specific funding source has been included or identified in the CIP or department budget to fund activities that would implement those plans. So as to the CIP line item in your budget, we are recommending that this be changed to small area plan implementation. This would provide a funding source for activities that will serve to implement components of various existing small area plans and would also apply to future approved small area plans. The intent would be that substantial activities would come back before you for approval before expenditure of funds from this line item. An alternative would be to create separate line items and allocate separate funding for implementation of each or identified approved small area plans. So I can give you an example of this. As you all know, the Fifeville Neighborhood Association is very active and dedicated, and they were the catalysts of the Cherry Avenue Small Area Plan. Following adoption of that small area plan, no funding was allocated or identified to assist with implementation of the plan. The Fifeville Neighborhood Association has recently provided a list of projects that they would like to see implemented for the city's consideration. At this time, if any of these projects were to be considered, we would need to identify a funding source to move forward. Under our recommendation, if any projects were recommended to proceed, that activity, including a cost estimate and time frame, would come back before the City Council for approval, but we would have a possible identified funding source in place. As it is now, the SIA implementation line item covers activities in the SIA, the strategic investment area only. So at this time, I'll turn it back to Mr. Freese to talk about the other CIP line item.
Yeah, so the second CIP line item there is labeled small area plans, and originally created to fund this program of creating small area plans. What we'd like to propose is that this be broadened slightly to encompass both small area plans and functional area plans that are serving to implement the comprehensive plan. So by way of an example, some of the functional plans that we've already adopted as part of the comprehensive plan include the affordable housing plan, our streets that work transportation plan, bike pedestrian plan. So the notion there is that we create a dedicated funding source for plan development, and as has been the practice to date, we come back to council for approval to move forward with any particular project using this funding source. And I believe at this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
So for both the SIA implementation, the small area plan, to one or both of those have a built-up reserve account of unspent money, and if so, what are those numbers?
They both have a built-up reserve of funding at this point. While we've been working on the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, there has not been expenditures towards small area plans, so there is just shy of $500,000 available in the SAP fund.
And under the SIA implementation line item, we have about a balance of about 1.1 million.
Mm-hmm. And so that money would just be carried over under these new definitions, basically?
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, my initial thoughts, I think the change to the SIA implementation totally makes sense. If I'm understanding it right, for both of these, any recommendations coming would need to come back to us for a vote, which I think is important. The only one I'm not sure about is with the small area plans, broadening that to include the streets that work or affordable housing plan, just because I do think those are distinct, different things from small area plans. And if we're going to take small area plans more seriously going forward, I feel like we need to have a stream of money that is just for that and not bleeding out. I just see those as totally distinct, different things that aren't really geographic in scope.
Does leave us without an identified funding source if we're looking to do, say, an update to Streets at Work, or, for example, one of the projects that we discussed around this time last year was doing a review and update of our environmental regulations. It's an important project that kind of corresponds with the work we're doing in the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. At this point in time, there isn't an identified funding source for that.
Mm-hmm.
Could you split?
Well, is there any negative impact to, I think what you might be getting ready to say is just splitting it up into a couple specific line items, and we may shift the money from small area plan or SIA to those buckets. I just feel like it'll be important long-term for council to continually be able to see, like, this is what's going for these specific things. I just worry that bucket's a little too broad. But
Could you
At your
split it?
pleasure.
Yeah, the SAP from SAP, and then functional area plan bucket as well? Just split the money in half or 2/3 or?
At your pleasure. I really thought, from my perspective, I thought the flexibility would be useful to use those funds as
Because we'd be
you saw
seeing
the
it anyway,
needs.
I guess is your point.
You would be seeing them anyway, is exactly right.
I guess my one thought is that it has been a source of some puzzlement to me over the last 4 years as to why we've been accumulating money in funds that we've not spent anything from. And then we're now up to $1.6 million, it sounds like, for what sounds like a great idea. Who can be against plans? Who can be against small area plans? Whatever it takes to start spending some of that money that we've allocated and we continue to allocate, I think is probably a good idea. And I'm not overly hung up on exactly how what we're calling the buckets. But any step that actually implements some of that and spends some of that and gets us something would be a good step in the right direction.
I appreciate that comment. And Mr. Sanders has asked me to come back to your session, your 4 o'clock session on the 18th to talk about that.
Something that jumps out at me is that I have been funneling various questions to our city manager and often get the response that we're working on a holistic program for that particular thing, that particular improvement or that particular response. Does the function of the small area plan and then the function of the people working on the holistic plan mean that 2 people are doing the same work?
No, I don't believe so, but I don't.
Does that?
No, I would think
Makes
that
sense.
the small area plan work, as we've been doing it, is the engagement of consultants to study geographic areas and then to produce a report. That's
Yeah.
my appreciation for what we have been doing.
I mean, I'd say the difference between these two bodies of work is the functional plans tend to look at a citywide scale on an issue, affordable housing. The small area plans tend to focus in on a particular area. The work that's done at the citywide level is taken as kind of a starting point in those studies, and it's really drilling down and saying, what are things that we need to do within this particular area?
And often it sounds like it's driven by, you come up with a scope of work for a consultant, is that?
It's been, I think, yes, generally they've all been done with a scope of work with a consultant. I think what I've appreciated the most is those plans that are more community-driven. And I think that's the direction we're still going to work with consultants, but the notion is to make sure that that work is being done in a way that engages that community in the conversation about what needs to happen within their area.
And the small area plans would become a resource to the staff that's doing the planning work. So if you think about Ben, and what Ben would be able to do is go through all of the small area plans, lift out all of the transportation-related items, in an effort to verify that those match all of the other conversations that we've been having, so that there's a working together type scenario, but that's the product of using the small area plan in that way.
Okay, I just didn't want to be,
I think I hear you.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
No redundancies.
Yeah.
I'm looking to eliminate as many of those as I can.
Yeah.
So the SIA, have we, I know this was, is there value in even continuing that as a separate thing, or does it make more sense to just put it all in, like reallocate all the funds at this point?
Yes, we should keep it because it is a defined plan all unto itself. So we're not suggesting undoing the strategic investment area. What we're suggesting is that, just being perfectly honest, because I tend to always tell you all the things that we did slightly off track before, and now we're getting better at it. Brenda was your housing coordinator for quite some time, not the redevelopment manager that she is today, which I've worked hard to get her back to her seat. So part of the reason why the SIA funding has been sitting is because she was doing other things. So
Yeah,
there was no
understand.
one really
Yeah, I get that.
watching and making sure that those projects, although she tried to do both and she has some projects that were moving. This is about really that cleanup action of making sure that we don't have one defined plan with a funding source and all the other plans that we're producing have no funding sources. We should be working to implement every plan that we produce so that they don't go on a shelf and not get used. So the thought was, by bringing these two together here, was to really reimagine this planning effort and bring the SIA in a way under SAPs, so that it's a small area plan, different, but a small area plan nonetheless. And
It's a
then
large
create a
small area.
fund, a large small area plan, and then use the fund for the implementation of all existing and newly created small area plans. And that in itself may, down the road, and I've acknowledged that both of them will look at me at some point and say, Sam, I need more money. So there could be a reason to increase it once we get more activities going under each of these plans in regards to implementation.
I guess part of my question is, and maybe this isn't worth going down this road, I just wonder what was identified in the SIAs. Are those still things we want to do?
We have quite a few things in that plan.
Okay.
And also, a lot of that plan was revolving around the redevelopment of Friendship Court and the Housing Authority properties, but
yeah.
there were also significant other infrastructure projects and community
And
projects.
those are still
and-
worth doing, we
Yes.
think? Okay. And when you say dedicated funding stream, what do you mean, like through the CIP that's allocated every year?
There's a renewal in the CIP for both, for SAP, so it's for small area plans, 100,000
Yep.
per year, and then for SIA is 200,000.
And the balance with, you said for the SIA was 1.2 and the balance 1.1?
It's about 1.1.
And for the SAPs was,
It's just shy of 500.
okay. So basically the funding stream that is it being proposed that the funding stream remain what it is now, which is basically the CIP
Yes.
dumps more money in every year?
Yeah, I think there's enough there we'll spend a few years spending that down.
Right, we're good for it. Got some money in the kitty there for a couple of
Yeah.
years.
But we're going to keep adding to, is that the thing?
As the CIP is set up right now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, your 5-year CIP that I'll present to you shortly has the exact same dollar amounts.
And so, for the next small area plan, which is likely to be the 10th and Page one, would the funding for conducting that plan come from this money, or is there another source for that?
It would come from that SAP's small area plan line item, yes.
And not likely, it will be 10th and Page.
Yeah.
That is the commitment.
Yeah.
Well, again, generally, I don't think it makes a functional difference, and it's not a hill that's critical to die on, but I think for council in the community, even if it doesn't make a functional difference for staff, I think it will be useful to be able to see that money is just for small area plans versus comprehensive plan implementation. Because thinking 5-6 years down the road, I think it will be important for council to have that be clear for them.
Would you imagine that being just another row there? Or would you?
Pretty much, and I'm fine with adjusting some of the money for the comprehensive plan.
Or a request as needed. I'm hearing both, so we'll figure that out.
So I just want to make sure, what direction do you need from us tonight?
Are you in support of this action, and then we will bring forward the resolution later?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go down, get some direction. Lloyd, what's your,
I don't have a clear sense of what I think the best approach is, but I'm certainly in favor of, as I said before, doing something that gets this moving. And if the way to do that is to redesignate the funds and start drawing on them to do some of the things that we already decided we want to do, I'm all in favor of that.
It does that.
Yeah, I'm in favor of what you really thoughtful people want to do, and I know that what has held things up to some degree, and I appreciate Lloyd's point too. We want to, see some progress, but I realize that the sort of all the oxygen in the room was being consumed by the comp plan and the zoning ordinance and all the other work that y'all have been doing. So my guess is if I would look on the city's website, there might be something that said small area plans, maybe, I don't know, but I think that keeping that up to date and all the various projects you're doing, and then also the functional pieces that Michael mentioned, and, maybe having a report on that every year or 6 months or whatever, would be a helpful thing.
Yep.
Natalie?
It seems to make sense. Yeah, thanks.
I'm generally supportive with the stipulation that I raised. It seems to me this is part of the trend. I think a lot of people in the community see the small area plans as promises that the city hasn't fulfilled, and I think this is a step towards changing that dynamic, which I'm glad to see.
Yes, I'm supportive of it. This is what I've been, as I've been speaking to various neighborhood groups, and they know about this. I've been saying this is what I believe the direction that we'll be going in. So I'm supportive of it as well. So,
Thank you.
okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sam, is that it for the? Okay, so we now going into closed session. A little bit early, but if someone can read us into closed session.
Okay, I've got that here. Motion for a city council closed meeting pursuant to section 2.2-3712 of the Virginia Code. I move that city council convene a closed meeting as authorized by Virginia Code section 2.2-3711A7 for the discussion of actual litigation where consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigation posture of the city, specifically Albemarle County versus City of Charlottesville, and section 2.2-3711A1 for the discussion and consideration of prospective candidates for appointment to the following boards and commissions: Housing Advisory Committee, Police Civilian Oversight Board, Towing Advisory Board, and Tree Commission.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, can we vote, please? Okay, the motion passes 5-0. We're in closed session. We'll come back at 6:30, and for those joining by Zoom, there will be a separate link for the 6:30 meeting. Thank you.